The security guard's hand trembled as he reached for Marcus Johnson's arm. "Sir, I'm going to have to escort you out." The livestream viewer count hit 50,000. What nobody in Madison's luxury boutique knew was that the unwelcome customer they were throwing out had just signed the papers to become their landlord. In exactly 17 minutes, their world would shatter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Stick around to see how one man's quiet revenge became the most viral retail takedown in history. Drop a comment with your city. Let's see how far this story travels. The November rain had just stopped when Marcus Johnson stepped out of his Tesla and deliberately walked past it, leaving the $120,000 vehicle parked 3 blocks away from Rodeo Drive. He pulled the hood of his worn gray sweatshirt over his head, adjusted the straps of his deliberately distressed backpack, and checked his reflection in a storefront window. Perfect. He looked exactly like someone who didn't belong here. At 32, Marcus had built a tech empire worth $847 million, but today wasn't about wealth. It was about something his Harvard MBA and Silicon Valley connections couldn't buy him the truth about how the world really saw him when the designer suits and Patek Philippe watches were stripped away. Madison's luxury boutique stood like a crystal palace on the corner, its windows displaying watches and jewelry that cost more than most people's homes. Marcus had been here before 2 weeks ago, dressed in his usual Tom Ford suit. They'd practically genuflected, offering champagne and private viewing rooms. Today would be different. The moment he pushed through the heavy glass doors, the atmosphere shifted. The soft classical music seemed to pause, as if the very air in the boutique had taken a breath. 3 sales associates: Emma, a blonde 20-something in a black sheath dress; David, an older gentleman with perfectly coiffed silver hair; and Jasmine, a young woman with striking features and nervous eyes, all turned to look at him. Emma's smile flickered and died like a candle in wind. David's hand instinctively moved to the panic button under his counter. Only Jasmine maintained her composure, though Marcus caught the slight widening of her eyes. "Can I help you?" Emma's voice carried that particular tone Marcus had heard 1,000 times before, the vocal equivalent of holding something at arm's length with 2 fingers. "I'm interested in looking at some watches," Marcus said, keeping his voice deliberately casual, matching the energy they expected from someone dressed like him. His hands stayed visible, non-threatening. He'd learned long ago that sudden movements in places like this could escalate situations quickly. Emma exchanged a glance with David. "Our watches start at $30,000. She said, emphasizing the number as if it were a magic spell meant to make him disappear. "That's fine," Marcus replied, moving toward the main display case. His worn Nikes squeaked slightly on the marble floor. He'd specifically chosen the ones with the small tear in the left toe. David stepped forward, intercepting him before he could get within 3 feet of the case. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Swatch store in the Beverly Center. They have some very nice pieces in the $100 range." Marcus felt the familiar burn in his chest, but kept his expression neutral. "I'm comfortable here, thanks. I'd like to see the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in the center case." Emma actually laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a genuine disbelieving laugh. "That watch is $85,000. Maybe you should try the mall down the street. They have a lovely fossil outlet." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus noticed a teenager at the jewelry counter had her phone out, seemingly texting, but holding it at an angle that suggested she was recording. Good. He'd hoped for witnesses, but video evidence was even better. $85,000, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "And what if I wanted to pay cash?" David's face flushed red. "Sir, this isn't a joke. That watch costs more than most people's annual salary." "More than your annual salary?" Marcus asked innocently. The older man's jaw clenched. "I don't think you understand where you are." "I understand perfectly," Marcus said, his voice dropping the casual act for just a moment, letting a hint of his boardroom presence shine through. "I'm in a retail establishment that's legally required to serve all customers equally, regardless of their appearance. Now I'd like to see that watch." Emma's hand went to her hip. We have a right to refuse service to anyone. Based on what grounds? Marcus asked. I haven't been disruptive. I haven't threatened anyone. I've simply asked to see a product you have for sale. The teenager with the phone had moved closer, and Marcus could see from her screen that she was definitely recording now. The viewer count in the corner showed 127 watching live. Jasmine finally spoke up, her voice hesitant. Maybe we could just... Jasmine. David cut her off sharply. Why don't you go check on the inventory in the back? She hesitated, looking between David and Marcus, clearly uncomfortable. But I just did inventory this morning. Then do it again, Emma snapped. Jasmine's shoulders sagged slightly, but she turned to go. As she passed Marcus, she whispered so quietly he almost missed it. I'm sorry. Marcus gave her the slightest nod. Not everyone here was the enemy. He'd remember that. Look, David said, adopting what he probably thought was a reasonable tone. We have certain standards here. Our clientele expects a particular shopping experience. Your presence is making other customers uncomfortable. Marcus glanced around the store. Besides the staff and the recording teenager, there were only two other customers, a middle-aged woman examining handbags who hadn't even looked up, and an elderly man sitting in a leather chair, sipping champagne and clearly enjoying the drama. Which customers specifically? Marcus asked. Emma rolled her eyes. We don't have to explain ourselves to you. This is a private business. Actually, a new voice chimed in. They kind of do. Everyone turned to look at the teenager whose name Marcus would later learn was Aisha. She held her phone higher, making it obvious she was recording. This is live streaming, by the way. We're up to 300 viewers and climbing. You guys want to keep going with the Pretty Woman remake, or should we skip to the part where you get sued? David's face went from red to purple. Young lady, you need to stop recording immediately. This is private property. It's a retail space open to the public, Aisha shot back. I know my rights. Plus, this is getting wild. Someone in the comments says they're calling the news. Emma grabbed for the phone, but Aisha stepped back quickly. Touch me, and it's assault. That's on camera, too. The situation was escalating faster than Marcus had anticipated. He'd planned to build to this moment more gradually, but sometimes improvisation was necessary. I'll make this simple, Marcus said, reaching into his backpack. Both David and Emma tensed, and he moved slowly, deliberately. I'm going to show you something, and then we can all decide how we want this to end. He pulled out his wallet, deliberately worn leather, bought from a thrift store specifically for this occasion. From it, he extracted a black card that caught the boutique's crystal lighting in a way that made it seem to glow. The American Express Centurion card with Marcus Johnson embossed in platinum letters. Emma's laugh died in her throat. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Now, Marcus said quietly, about that watch. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the soft classical music and the sharp intake of breath from Aisha as she zoomed her camera in on the card. That's... Emma started, then stopped. Those are invitation only. The spending requirement is $250,000 a year, minimum $500,000 initialization. Marcus finished. I'm aware. Now would you like to show me the watch, or should I take my business to your competitors at Tourneau? I'm sure they'd be interested to know that Madison's turns away qualified customers based on their appearance. David's business instincts finally kicked in. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Marcus cut him off. You made your position very clear. The question is whether you're going to compound your mistake or try to salvage this situation. Emma, trying to recover, plastered on a fake smile that looked more like a grimace. Of course we'd be happy to show you any piece in our collection, Mr. You can read, can't you? Marcus nodded toward the card still in his hand. She flushed. Mr. Johnson, please let me get that piece for you. No, Marcus said firmly. I want him to do it. He pointed at David. And I want him to explain every feature, the full history of the brand, and the movement specifications. The same presentation you'd give to someone in a suit. David's jaw clenched so tight, Marcus could hear his teeth grinding. But the black card was like kryptonite to his prejudices. Slowly, painfully, he moved to the case and began extracting the watch. Aisha's live stream was going viral in real time. The viewer count had jumped to 2,847 and climbing. Comments were flying by so fast they were unreadable. The Royal Oak, David began, his voice strained, was designed by Gerald Genta in 1972. It was revolutionary for its time, the first luxury sports watch in steel. As David droned on, clearly hating every second, Marcus noticed someone new entering the store, a woman in her 40s with sharp features and an even sharper pantsuit. Sarah Martinez, according to her name tag, store manager. She took in the scene quickly, David showing a high-end watch to someone who looked homeless. Emma standing awkwardly to the side. Aisha openly recording, and the growing crowd gathering outside the store windows. "What's going on here?" Sarah demanded. Emma rushed to her side, whispering urgently. Marcus couldn't hear everything, but he caught causing a scene, black card, and threatening to sue. Sarah's expression hardened. She walked over with the confidence of someone used to handling difficult situations. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, genuinely surprised. He'd expected her to try to smooth things over, not double down. "You're creating a disturbance. You're making our staff and other customers uncomfortable, and you're encouraging unauthorized recording in our store. I'm standing here quietly looking at a watch your employee is showing me. How is that creating a disturbance?" Sarah's smile was ice cold. "We reserve the right to maintain the appropriate atmosphere for our clientele. Your presence is disruptive to that atmosphere." "My presence?" Marcus repeated slowly. "Not my behavior. My presence." "I don't appreciate your tone," Sarah said. "And frankly, showing a black card doesn't mean anything. For all we know, it's stolen or fake." The accusation hung in the air like a poison cloud. Even David looked uncomfortable at the directness of it. Aisha's voice cut through the tension. "Ma'am, you realize you're being live-streamed to 12,000 people right now, right? You just accused this man of theft with zero evidence." Sarah turned on her. "You need to stop recording immediately, or I'll call the police." "Call them," Aisha said. "I'm sure they'd love to explain to you that recording in a public accommodation is perfectly legal." While they argued, Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. Then he checked his watch, a cheap Casio he'd bought for $20. 2:47 p.m. Perfect timing. "You know what?" Marcus said, interrupting the argument. "You're right, Sarah. Maybe I should go." Sarah looked triumphant. Emma relieved. David just looked tired. "But first," Marcus continued, "I have a question. What would happen if your landlord saw this, the way you're treating a potential customer?" Sarah scoffed. "Our landlord is an investment firm in New York. They don't care about individual customer interactions, as long as we pay our rent." "Actually," Marcus said, pulling out his phone and showing her an email. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, your landlord is MJ Capital Holdings, based right here in Los Angeles." Sarah barely glanced at it. "So, another faceless corporation. It doesn't matter." "MJ," Marcus said slowly, savoring each letter, "stands for Marcus Johnson." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the classical music seemed to pause. "That's..." Sarah started, then stopped. "You're lying." Marcus shrugged. "Your corporate emergency contact should be getting a call right about now." As if on cue, Sarah's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went white. "Emergency board meeting. 15 minutes. Mandatory attendance." "That's my meeting," Marcus said conversationally. "I called it. You see, I've been very interested in how Madison's treats its customers. So interested that when this building came up for sale, I decided to buy it. The whole thing. And you know what's interesting about your lease? There's a clause about maintaining brand standards and not engaging in discriminatory practices. Emma's phone was buzzing now too. Then David's. Everyone in management is getting that call, Marcus explained. Your CEO, Robert Madison himself, is being patched in from Monaco, where I believe he's vacationing on his yacht. Sarah's hands were shaking. This isn't happening. Oh, but it is, Marcus said. He turned to Aisha. How many viewers now? 27,000 and climbing, she said with a grin. This is better than Netflix. Marcus addressed the camera directly. To everyone watching, what you've seen today isn't unusual. It happens every day to people who look like me, who dress like me. The only difference is, today, there are consequences. He turned back to Sarah. Now you have two choices. You can escort me out as you planned, and I'll see you upstairs in 15 minutes to discuss the immediate termination of your lease. Or you can genuinely apologize, and we can discuss how Madison's is going to change its training, its policies, and its culture. Sarah's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The elderly man who'd been sipping champagne stood up. Young man, he said to Marcus, I've been shopping here for 20 years. I've seen them turn away dozens of people for looking inappropriate. It's about damn time someone did something about it. Thank you, Marcus said. And you are Judge Harrison, retired. And if you need a witness for any legal proceedings, I'm available. Sarah finally found her voice. Mr. Johnson, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Marcus interrupted. You made it very clear. I don't have the right presence for your store, despite having the means to buy anything in here, despite being a paying customer, despite now being your landlord. Sir, David interjected, if we had known. That's exactly the point, Marcus said sharply. You shouldn't need to know. You should treat every person who walks through those doors with respect, regardless of how they're dressed or what they look like. Jasmine had returned from the back room, and her eyes were wide as she took in the scene. What's happening? Justice, Aisha said, still recording. Sweet, sweet justice. Marcus's phone buzzed. That's my lawyer, he said, glancing at it. He's upstairs with the rest of my team. We have quite a presentation prepared. Revenue analysis, demographic studies, and some very interesting security footage from the past 6 months showing a pattern of discrimination. Sarah was practically hyperventilating. Please, Mr. Johnson, we can work this out. Yes, Marcus agreed. We can, but not here, not like this. I want Robert Madison on the line. I want your entire corporate team to hear what I have to say. And I want changes. Real changes. He started walking toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Sarah, that $25,000 deposit you mentioned earlier, the one I'd need just to touch a watch, I'll be expecting that policy in writing. My legal team will find it very interesting. As he reached the door, Mike, the security guard who'd been standing quietly in the corner this whole time, stepped forward. Mr. Johnson. Marcus tensed, but Mike just extended his hand. My son faces this kind of thing all the time. Thank you for standing up. Marcus shook his hand firmly. It shouldn't take someone owning the building to get basic respect. No, Mike agreed. But I'm glad you did it anyway. Marcus looked back at the store. Emma was crying, whether from shame or fear for her job, he couldn't tell. David was slumped against the counter, looking every one of his 63 years. Sarah was on her phone, presumably trying to do damage control. Only Jasmine met his eyes. Mr. Johnson. For what it's worth, I've filed 3 complaints with HR about this. They were all ignored. Not anymore, Marcus promised. Jasmine, was it? After my meeting, I'd like to talk to you about those complaints, and about potentially running this location once we've made some changes. Her eyes widened. What? You were the only one who showed basic human decency. That matters. He headed for the door, then turned back one last time. 15 minutes. Boardroom. Don't be late. As he walked out, the crowd that had gathered outside parted for him. Some applauded. Others just recorded. A few shouted questions. Mr. Johnson, are you really going to shut them down? How long have you been planning this? What happens next? Marcus paused on the sidewalk, looking back at the gleaming storefront of Madison's. What happens next is change. Real change. Aisha had followed him out. Mr. Johnson, I'm actually a journalism student at USC. Could I interview you after your meeting? Marcus smiled, his first genuine smile since entering the store. You've got good instincts recording when you did. What made you start? I could feel it, she said. The tension, the way they looked at you. My dad's a doctor, and he still gets followed around in stores sometimes. I knew something was about to go down. Give me your contact info, Marcus said. After this is over, I'll give you an exclusive. This is bigger than just one store. As they exchanged information, Sarah appeared in the doorway. Mr. Johnson, the meeting. Robert Madison wants to know if you're serious about the lease termination. Marcus didn't even turn around. Tell Robert I'm very serious. He has 13 minutes to convince me otherwise. The walk to the building's main entrance was short, but Marcus felt every step. He'd been planning this for months, ever since his first undercover visit to various luxury stores had revealed a pattern he couldn't ignore. Madison's had been the worst offender, but they weren't the only one. The security guard at the main building entrance, different from Mike in the store, looked confused when Marcus approached. Can I help you, sir? Marcus pulled out a different card, his building access card. I'm going up to the boardroom. The guard's eyes widened as he recognized the name on the card. Mr. Johnson, I didn't recognize. I mean, welcome, sir. It's fine, Thomas, Marcus said, reading the man's name tag. I dressed down for a reason today. In the elevator, Marcus took a deep breath. The easy part was over. Now came the real work, turning this moment into lasting change. His phone had been buzzing non-stop. The video had spread beyond Aisha's live stream. Someone had already created a Twitter hashtag Madison's busted. His publicist was probably having a heart attack. The elevator opened on the top floor where his team was waiting. Janet, his lawyer, looked up from her laptop. The live stream just hit 100,000 views. 3 news stations have called. Good, Marcus said. Let them watch. Let everyone watch. His CFO, David Chen, shook his head. You know you could have just bought the store and changed things quietly. Quietly doesn't create change, David. Quietly lets them sweep it under the rug and go back to business as usual in 6 months. His assistant, Maria, handed him a folder. Everything you asked for. Security footage, complaint records, demographic analysis of customers served versus customers turned away. It's damning. And the lease. Janet smiled a shark smile that had terrified opponents in courtrooms across the country. Ironclad. The anti-discrimination clause gives us full termination rights with no penalty. They're completely at our mercy. Marcus checked his watch. 5 minutes until the meeting. His phone rang, a number he recognized as Madison's corporate line. Marcus Johnson, he answered. Mr. Johnson, this is Robert Madison. The voice was cultured, slightly British, despite Madison being born in Ohio. I understand there's been an incident at my Beverly Hills location. Your managers just tried to throw me out of your store for shopping while Black Robert. That's more than an incident. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. It's on video, live streamed to over 100,000 people and growing. Your manager accused me of having a stolen credit card. Your employees laughed at me. They told me to shop at Fossil instead. Silence on the other end. Robert, in 2 minutes, I'm walking into a boardroom where I'm going to present 2 options. One involves you keeping your lease and your reputation with some significant changes. The other involves me terminating your lease, pursuing legal action for discrimination, and ensuring every news outlet in the country knows exactly what happened today. Mr. Johnson, surely we can. 2 minutes, Robert. I suggest you authorize your team to agree to whatever terms I propose, because the alternative is going to cost you a lot more than money." He hung up. The boardroom was filling up. Sarah, Emma, and David filed in, looking like they were heading to their execution. Several other Madison's executives Marcus didn't recognize took seats around the table. A large screen on the wall showed Robert Madison calling in from his yacht, the Mediterranean, visible in the background. Marcus remained standing as everyone settled. The contrast was stark, him in his hoodie and worn sneakers, everyone else in designer suits. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, "let me tell you a story. 2 weeks ago I visited Madison's wearing a Tom Ford suit. I was offered champagne, a private showing room, and 3 employees' personal phone numbers in case I needed anything. Today I walked in wearing this and was treated like a criminal." He clicked a remote and the screen split, showing security footage from both visits side by side. Same man, same money, different treatment. And according to my research, this happens at Madison's an average of 12 times per week. That's over 600 potential customers per year, turned away based on appearance alone. Sarah started to speak, but Marcus held up a hand. "I'm not finished. Jasmine, I believe you filed complaints about this." Jasmine, who'd been brought up to the meeting at Marcus's insistence, nodded nervously. 3 times. I was told it was a misunderstanding, and that I should focus on my sales numbers instead of causing trouble." "And what happened to your sales numbers?" "They suddenly started dropping. I was given worse shifts, fewer high-value clients." "Retaliation," Janet said from her seat. "That's another lawsuit right there." Robert Madison's voice came through the speaker. "Mr. Johnson, what exactly do you want?" Marcus smiled. "I want change, Robert. Real lasting change. And I have a proposal." He clicked the remote again, bringing up a presentation. Option 1. Madison's continues operating, but under new conditions. Mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff, quarterly audits of customer service interactions. A review board for all discrimination complaints, with external oversight, and Jasmine Washington, promoted to manage the Beverly Hills location. Gasps around the room. Sarah's face turned red. "She's only been here 2 years. And in those 2 years, she's shown more integrity than you've shown in 10. Marcus shot back. "She's also the only one who tried to do the right thing today." "What's option 2? Robert asked quietly. "Option 2 is, I terminate your lease effective immediately for breach of contract, specifically the anti-discrimination clause. You have 30 days to vacate. I then hold a press conference about why Madison's is no longer welcome in any of my properties. I own 17 retail buildings in major cities, by the way. After that, my legal team files a discrimination lawsuit that will make national news for months." The room was silent. Robert cleared his throat. "The first option. We'll take the first option." "I'm not finished," Marcus said. "There's one more requirement. Sarah Martinez, Emma Thompson, and David Crawford are terminated immediately. They've shown they can't be trusted to treat customers fairly." "You can't," Sarah started. "I can, and I am," Marcus interrupted. "It's either that, or I pull the whole lease. Robert." On the screen, Robert Madison looked older than his 70 years. "Agreed," Marcus nodded. "Janet will have the full agreement drawn up within the hour. Sign it, implement the changes immediately, and Madison's can stay. Fail to follow through, and option 2 goes into effect." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. I'll be shopping at Madison's regularly, sometimes in a suit, sometimes dressed like this. Your staff won't know when. Consider it quality control." As he walked out, he could hear the eruption of voices behind him. Sarah pleading, Robert demanding explanations, other executives trying to figure out damage control. In the hallway, Aisha was waiting. "That was incredible. The stream hit 200,000 viewers. You're trending #1 on Twitter." Marcus felt exhausted suddenly. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him with the familiar weight of fighting battles that shouldn't need to be fought. It shouldn't have taken this he said quietly. It shouldn't take owning the building to be treated with basic respect. No, Aisha agreed. But maybe this will make them think twice next time. Marcus's phone was ringing non-stop now. His publicist reporters, other business owners. The story was spreading like wildfire. Janet emerged from the boardroom. They're signing everything. No resistance. Robert wants to know if you'll consider a joint statement to help with damage control. Tell him he can make his own statement. Mine will be simple. Discrimination has no place in luxury retail or anywhere else. Actions have consequences. As they waited for the elevator, Maria pulled up her tablet. Sir, you need to see this. Other luxury stores are already sending out emergency memos to their staff about customer service policies. Barney's Saks, Neiman Marcus, they're all panicking. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Good. Let them panic. Let them wonder if their next customer in casual clothes might be their landlord, or a civil rights lawyer, or just someone with a camera and a sense of justice. The elevator arrived, and as they descended, Marcus thought about his father, who'd faced this same discrimination in the 1960s, except then it was legal. It was His father had lived to see Barack Obama become president, but died before seeing if real change would follow. This is for you, Dad, Marcus whispered. When they reached the lobby, Mike the security guard was there. Mr. Johnson, I just wanted to say my son saw the live stream. He's 17, wants to be an engineer. He says you're his hero. Tell him heroes are people who do what's right when it's hard, Marcus said. Today wasn't heroic. It was just overdue. Outside, news vans were already arriving. Reporters shouted questions. Marcus ignored them all, walking to where he'd left his Tesla. As he drove away, his phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. He'd look at it later, but it turned out to be from a young black entrepreneur who'd been turned away from Madison's 6 months ago. Thank you, it said simply. You don't know what this means. But Marcus did know. He knew exactly what it meant. It meant that maybe, just maybe, the next person who walked into Madison's or any luxury store would be judged by their intention to shop, not their appearance. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Marcus drove home, knowing that tomorrow would bring more battles. PR wars, legal challenges, probably death threats from people who thought he'd gone too far. But today he'd won a small victory. And sometimes small victories were how you changed the world. The dashboard showed another call coming in. This time, it was his mother. Marcus, baby, I saw the video. Your father would be so proud. For the first time all day, Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. Thanks, Mom. You did good, son. You did real good. As he pulled into his driveway, Marcus saw his neighbor's kids playing basketball in their yard. They waved at him, and he waved back, wondering what kind of world they'd grow up in. Would they face the same challenges, the same assumptions? Maybe not. Maybe today had nudged the world just a little bit toward justice. His phone buzzed with another text, this one from Jasmine. Mr. Johnson, I just wanted to say thank you. I won't let you down. He texted back, I know you won't. Be the manager you wished you had. Inside his house, Marcus finally allowed himself to collapse on his couch. His assistant had already forwarded him dozens of interview requests. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, BBC. Everyone wanted the story. Tomorrow, he'd face them all. He'd turn this moment into a movement. But tonight, he just sat in the gathering darkness, thinking about all the people who'd faced discrimination without recourse, without power, without a platform. This was for them. All of them. His laptop pinged with an email from Robert Madison himself. A personal note, not a corporate statement. Mr. Johnson, I built Madison's from nothing. It's my life's work. Today, you showed me that I'd lost sight of what luxury really means. It's not about exclusion, it's about excellence. Excellence in products and in service to all customers. The changes you've demanded aren't punishments. They're opportunities to be better. Thank you for the wake-up call. Robert. Marcus read it twice. Maybe, just maybe, some people could change. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars brought down to earth. Somewhere out there, in other stores on other streets, the same scene that had played out today was happening again. But perhaps now, with millions of people having watched what happened at Madison's, it would happen a little less. Perhaps someone would think twice. Perhaps a manager would remember the viral video and choose differently. Change didn't happen all at once. It happened in moments like this, in stands like this, in people refusing to accept the unacceptable. Marcus's phone rang one more time. This time it was a number he recognized, his best friend from college, now a senator. "Marcus, I just saw everything. We need to talk about legislation, real protection for consumers against retail discrimination. Are you in?" "I'm in," Marcus said without hesitation. The conversation that followed would eventually lead to the Fair Shopping Act, federal legislation that would make retail discrimination explicitly illegal with severe penalties. But that was still to come. For now, Marcus Johnson sat in his living room, still wearing his hoodie and torn sneakers, still carrying his worn backpack, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The war against discrimination was far from over. But today, in one gleaming boutique on Rodeo Drive, a battle had been won, and tomorrow, the real work would begin. The morning after the Madison's incident broke the internet, Marcus woke to find reporters camped outside his Bel Air estate. Through his bedroom window, he counted at least 15 news vans, their satellite dishes pointed skyward like metallic prayers. His phone showed 847 missed calls and over 3,000 text messages. The video had reached 12 million views overnight. "Mr. Johnson." His housekeeper Elena knocked softly. "There's someone at the back entrance. Says he's from Madison's corporate office. Should I call security?" Marcus pulled on a robe and made his way downstairs. Through the kitchen window, he could see a young man in his 20s nervously clutching a manila envelope. The kid looked terrified. "Let him in," Marcus said, "but have Thomas stay close." The young man who entered was practically shaking. His name tag read, Kevin Chen, Madison's financial analyst. "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to come to your home, but I couldn't get through by phone and this couldn't wait." Kevin's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. "I've been working at Madison's for 3 years. After what happened yesterday, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." He pulled out a stack of documents. "These are internal memos from the last 5 years. Direct instructions from senior management about customer filtering." Marcus took the papers, his eyes widening as he read. The language was carefully coded, but the intent was clear. Maintain brand exclusivity. Ensure customer base aligns with corporate image. Discretionary service standards. This one, Kevin pointed to a specific memo, is from Sarah Martinez herself. She actually created a scoring system. Customers were rated based on appearance, accent, and presumed net worth. Anyone below a 7 was to be discouraged from purchasing. Marcus felt his anger rising again. "You've had these for how long?" "I found them 6 months ago when I was doing a financial audit. I tried to report it, but..." Kevin's voice cracked. "They offered me a promotion and a 50% raise to forget what I'd seen. I took it. I have student loans, my mother's medical bills. I took their money and stayed quiet." The young man was crying now. "But watching that live stream yesterday, seeing you stand up to them when you had everything to lose, or at least they thought you did, I realized I couldn't live with myself anymore." Marcus studied the documents more carefully. One name kept appearing in the authorization lines: Robert Madison himself. The man who'd claimed ignorance yesterday had been orchestrating this system for years. "Kevin, are you willing to testify to this? To go on record?" "Yes. I've already been fired anyway. They called me at 6 a.m., said my position was being eliminated due to restructuring." Marcus's phone rang. It was Janet. "Marcus, you need to turn on Channel 7. Now." He grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. Robert Madison's face filled the screen, standing outside Madison's Beverly Hills location with Sarah Martinez beside him. Marcus's blood ran cold. Sarah was supposed to have been terminated. The incident yesterday was a carefully orchestrated attack on our brand, Robert was saying to the gathered reporters. Mr. Johnson came into our store with the deliberate intention of creating a scene for publicity. We have security footage showing him texting someone just before the confrontation escalated. We believe he hired the young woman to film everything. Sarah stepped forward to the microphone. Mr. Johnson threatened us, leveraged his position as our landlord to force us to sign documents under duress. We're filing charges for extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. They were turning the narrative around, making him the villain. His phone exploded with calls. Janet was first. "Don't say anything to anyone. I'm on my way over. This is a declaration of war." But the damage was already being done. On social media, the narrative was splitting. Some people continued to support Marcus, but others were buying into Madison's version of events. "Another rich guy playing victim," one tweet read. "He probably did set this whole thing up for attention." Aisha called next. "Mr. Johnson, I'm getting death threats now. Madison's lawyers are saying I was paid to participate in a conspiracy. My school is talking about disciplinary action." "Don't worry," Marcus assured her. "My legal team will protect you. You did nothing wrong." But even as he said it, he realized Madison's counterattack was more sophisticated than he'd anticipated. They were muddying the waters, creating enough doubt to divide public opinion. Kevin was watching the TV in horror. "They're lying. Everything they're saying is a lie." "Can you prove it?" Marcus asked. "I have more documents at my apartment. Recordings too. I started recording meetings after I found those memos just to protect myself." "We need to get them. Now." As they prepared to leave through the back entrance, Marcus's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Johnson, this is Detective Raymond Hughes, LAPD. We need you to come to the station. There's been an allegation of assault." "Assault? What are you talking about?" "Emma Thompson filed a police report. She claims you grabbed her wrist when she tried to assist you in the store. She has a medical report showing bruising." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "I never touched her. I never touched anyone." "Sir, I'm just telling you what's been reported. Can you come in voluntarily, or do I need to send officers?" Janet had arrived and took the phone. "Detective Hughes, this is Janet Williams, Mr. Johnson's attorney. We'll be there within the hour." She hung up and turned to Marcus. "They're playing dirty, dirtier than I expected. We need to get ahead of this fast." The ride to Kevin's apartment was tense. Thomas drove while Marcus and Janet strategized in the back. Kevin sat in the front, occasionally pointing out turns. "The assault charge is bogus," Janet said. "But it doesn't matter. The headline, 'Marcus Johnson Arrested,' will run regardless of the truth." They pulled up to Kevin's building in Koreatown, a modest complex far from the glitz of Beverly Hills. As they climbed to the third floor, Marcus noticed a door slightly ajar down the hall. "Kevin, is that your apartment?" Kevin's face went white. "I locked it. I definitely locked it." Thomas moved ahead of them, pushing the door open carefully. The apartment was ransacked. Papers everywhere, furniture overturned, Kevin's laptop smashed on the floor. "The recordings!" Kevin ran to his bedroom closet, throwing aside clothes. A small safe sat in the corner, its door twisted open. Empty. "They're gone. Everything's gone." Marcus felt the situation spiraling. Madison's was playing for keeps, using resources and connections he hadn't anticipated. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop now, or Emma won't be the only one pressing charges. We have 6 more employees ready to swear you were aggressive and threatening." Then another. "Your little journalist friend has quite an interesting browser history. Would be a shame if it became public." And another. "Kevin Chen's mother is in Cedar Sinai, room 4B. Visiting hours are very flexible for us." That last one made Marcus's blood run cold. They were threatening Kevin's sick mother. "We need to get your mother moved to a different hospital," Marcus told Kevin, immediately. But Kevin was staring at something on the floor. A single photograph left deliberately visible among the chaos. It showed Kevin's mother in her hospital bed, taken from inside the room. The message was clear. Janet was on her phone barking orders to her team. "I need a protective detail at Cedars-Sinai now, and get our PR team ready for war." Marcus's phone rang. It was his own mother. "Marcus, there are men outside my house. They say they're reporters, but something doesn't feel right." His rage was building to a level he'd never experienced. They were going after his mother now. "Mom, pack a bag. Thomas's brother will pick you up in 10 minutes. You're staying at my house until this is over." He turned to Janet. "They want war. They've got it." An hour later, they sat in the police station as Detective Hughes reviewed Emma Thompson's statement. The medical report showed bruising on her wrist, photographed and documented by a doctor, whose name Marcus recognized, a Madison's customer, who'd been in the store buying his wife a $50,000 necklace just last month. "This is fabricated," Marcus said flatly. "Check the security footage." Hughes grimaced. "That's the thing. The camera that would have shown that particular angle was malfunctioning yesterday. Convenient, right? You know this is a setup." "What I know and what I can prove are different things," Hughes said quietly. "But between you and me, Emma Thompson has no prior medical history of bruising easily, no medications that would cause it, and the bruise pattern is consistent with self-infliction." "So why are we here?" "Because someone very powerful wants you here. Someone with enough juice to make my captain insist I bring you in." Hughes leaned forward. "Mr. Johnson, you kicked a hornet's nest. Madison's has connections you haven't even imagined. Judges, politicians, police commissioners. They've been part of the Los Angeles power structure for 40 years. Are you telling me to back down? I'm telling you to be careful. And to watch your back." Janet intervened. "Are you charging my client?" "Not at this time, but the investigation remains open." As they left the station, reporters swarmed. The narrative was already shifting. "Billionaire landlord accused of assault," read the CNN Chiron. "Madison's fights back against hostile takeover," said Fox Business. In the car, Marcus's phone rang. It was David Chen, his CFO. "Marcus, we have a problem. 3 of our major retail tenants just called. They're threatening to break their leases if we don't resolve the Madison situation. They're scared of being your next target." "Let them try. Our leases are ironclad." "It's not about the leases. Word is Madison's is organizing a boycott. Any retailer that stays in our properties will face a coordinated campaign. They're calling it Standing Against Corporate Bullying." Marcus laughed bitterly. "I'm the bully. They discriminated against customers for years, and I'm the bully." His phone buzzed with another text. This one made him stop cold. It was a photo of him from college at a party, clearly drunk, with what looked like white powder on the table in front of him. He remembered that night the powder was crushed aspirin, a stupid joke about Wolf of Wall Street. But taken out of context, it looked damning. The text read, "Amazing what photo editing can do these days. Or is it edited?" Janet saw his face. "What is it?" He showed her the photo. She whistled low. "They're going full scorched earth. This is beyond corporate warfare. This is personal destruction." They drove to Marcus's house in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The reporters outside had multiplied shouting questions about the assault allegations. Inside, Marcus found his mother sitting with Aisha, who'd come seeking safety after her apartment building's management received anonymous complaints about her. "They're trying to get me evicted," Aisha said. "They're saying I'm running an illegal business from my apartment because of my YouTube channel." Kevin was there too, having nowhere else safe to go. "My mother's doctor just called. Madison's corporate insurance is questioning her coverage, saying there might be irregularities in her treatment billing." Marcus stood in his living room, looking at these people whose lives were being destroyed because they'd stood with him. His mother threatened at her own home. Aisha facing eviction and academic suspension. Kevin watching his mother's medical care being weaponized. For a moment, he considered backing down. Dropping everything, letting Madison's win. It would be so easy. Sign some papers, make a statement about misunderstandings, and watch all the threats evaporate. Then his phone rang. The caller ID showed a name he hadn't seen in years. Reverend James Patterson, his father's best friend from the civil rights movement. Marcus. The Reverend's voice was aged but strong. I saw the news. Don't you dare back down. Reverend, they're going after everyone I care about. You think they didn't go after us in the 60s? You think they didn't threaten our families, our jobs, our lives? Your daddy faced worse than this, and he never backed down, not once. This is different. No, son, it's exactly the same, just dressed up prettier. They're still trying to keep us in our place, still trying to make us grateful for scraps. You've got something they didn't count on: power, real power. Use it. After the call ended, Marcus stood straighter. The Reverend was right. This was bigger than him now. Janet, he said. Remember those other buildings I own, the 17 retail properties? Yeah. How many Madison's locations are in competing shopping centers? Janet's eyes lit up. At least 8 that I know of. Contact every one of our tenants. Offer them the Madison spaces at 20% below market rate if they can open within 90 days. That's war. They want to destroy me, fine. But I'm taking their entire company down with me. He turned to Kevin. Those recordings you mentioned, you backed them up somewhere, didn't you? Kevin's face flushed. I might have emailed some files to myself, to a different account. Can you access them? If they haven't found that email address, yes. Marcus handed him a laptop. Do it. As Kevin worked, Marcus's phone rang again. This time it was someone unexpected: Judge Harrison, the elderly man from the store. Mr. Johnson, I've been following the news. It's disgraceful what they're doing. I want to help. Judge, I appreciate that, but no buts. I've been keeping my own records of Madison's discrimination for years. I'm what you might call a testing enthusiast. I've sent in Black friends, Hispanic friends, Asian friends, all at different times, all with hidden cameras. I have 43 incidents documented. Marcus felt a spark of hope. 43, with video evidence. I was building a case for a class action lawsuit, but I think your approach might be more effective. Can I come by? Within an hour, Marcus's living room had transformed into a war room. Judge Harrison arrived with boxes of evidence. 3 more former Madison's employees reached out willing to testify about discriminatory policies. A civil rights organization offered legal support, but the biggest break came from Kevin. He'd managed to access his backup email and found something extraordinary. Listen to this, he said, playing an audio file on the laptop. Robert Madison's voice filled the room. I don't care if they have money. This isn't about money. It's about maintaining our image. Our customers pay premium prices to shop in an exclusive environment. If we let everyone in, we're just another department store. Another voice, Sarah Martinez. But sir, isn't that illegal? Robert's laugh was cold. Only if someone can prove intent. That's why we never put anything explicitly in writing. Use coded language. Brand standards. Customer experience. Discretionary service. Never say race, never say class. Make it about attitude, about fit, about feeling. Feelings can't be prosecuted. The room was silent after the recording ended. When was this? Janet asked. 6 weeks ago, Kevin said. Right after they got wind of a possible discrimination investigation. They were coaching the management team on how to avoid liability. Marcus felt the tide turning. We need to release this. Not yet, Janet cautioned. We need to be strategic. They've been attacking your credibility all day. If we release this now, they'll claim it's doctored, taken out of context. We need to build back your narrative first. Aisha, who'd been quiet, suddenly spoke up. I have an idea. They're saying I was paid to film right, that it was all staged. Yeah. What if we prove it wasn't? I've been filming videos in that area for months for my journalism project. I have footage from different stores, different days. Some of it shows Madison's in the background, and in at least 3 videos, you can see them turning away people who don't fit their standards. She pulled out her phone and showed them. The videos were time-stamped, clearly authentic. In one, a young Latino man was being escorted out while wealthy-looking customers were welcomed warmly. In another, an elderly black woman was told the store was closing for inventory, while white customers continued shopping inside. This is gold, Janet said. With the judge's evidence and these videos, we can establish a clear pattern. Marcus's phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but this time the message was different. Mr. Johnson, I'm a current Madison's employee. Corporate just sent an emergency memo. They're planning something big for tomorrow. Be ready. Before he could process this, the doorbell rang. Thomas checked the security camera. It's a courier, legal documents. The documents were a cease and desist order demanding Marcus stop harassing and defaming Madison's. But attached was something else, a purchase offer for Marcus's building at 3 times market value. The buyer was hidden behind an LLC, but the terms were clear: sell the building and drop all claims against Madison's. They're trying to buy their way out, Janet observed. 3 times market value, David Chen said, having arrived to help with strategy. That's $200 million, Marcus. Everyone looked at him. $200 million to walk away. To end all of this. To stop the threats against his mother, against Aisha and Kevin. Marcus thought about his father again. In 1963, he'd been offered money to stop protesting a segregated restaurant. A lot of money for a man with a family to feed. He'd torn up the check in front of them. Marcus walked to his desk, picked up the offer, and very deliberately fed it into the shredder. Now, he said, turning back to his assembled team. Let's talk about tomorrow. They want to escalate. Let's give them an escalation they'll never forget. Janet leaned forward. What do you have in mind? Madison's has their annual shareholders meeting tomorrow at the Beverly Wilshire. Very exclusive, very private. Except... Marcus smiled for the first time all day. As their landlord, I have certain rights, including the right to inspect the property for compliance with lease terms. You want to crash their shareholders' meeting? Not crash, attend. With every piece of evidence we have. With every person they've discriminated against. With the media they've been courting so carefully. Judge Harrison chuckled. That's brilliant. They can't keep you out without looking like they have something to hide. And if they let me in, then Robert Madison is going to have to explain those recordings to his shareholders. Live. On camera. The room erupted in planning. Calls were made, documents were prepared, media was alerted. But Marcus knew this was more than just a corporate battle now. It had become something larger, a fight for principles, for justice, for all the people who'd been made to feel less than human by those with power. As the night wore on, more support came in. The NAACP offered backing. 3 celebrities who'd experienced discrimination at Madison's reached out. A group of Madison's own shareholders, disturbed by the day's events, wanted to hear Marcus's side, but the threats continued too. Another photo appeared, this one definitely doctored, showing Marcus in a compromising position. Madison's PR team was working overtime, flooding social media with bots and paid influencers to shift the narrative. At midnight, Marcus stood on his balcony, looking out at the lights of Los Angeles. Tomorrow would be decisive. Either he'd expose Madison's completely or they'd destroy him. His mother joined him. You know your father would be proud. Not just of the fight, but of how you're fighting it. With intelligence, with strategy, with allies. I'm scared, Mom, Marcus admitted. Not for me, but for everyone else. Aisha, Kevin, We chose to stand with you, she interrupted. That's what courage is, standing up even when you're scared. Especially when it's for something bigger than yourself. Inside, Kevin called out, "Mr. Johnson, you need to see this." On the laptop screen was a news report. 3 more Madison's employees had come forward with allegations of discrimination inspired by Kevin's courage. The tide was turning again. Then came the real bombshell. Robert Madison had made a critical mistake. In his eagerness to discredit Marcus, he'd given an interview to a financial podcast that evening. Thinking he was speaking to a friendly audience, he'd let his guard down. "The problem with people like Johnson," Robert's recorded voice said, "is they don't understand tradition, excellence, exclusivity. They want to turn everything into Walmart. Some stores, some brands, some places are meant for certain people. It's not discrimination, it's discretion." The interviewer, apparently not as friendly as Robert had assumed, pressed, "Certain people. You know what I mean. People who appreciate quality, who understand luxury, who've been raised with certain standards." The dog whistles were so loud, they were basically regular whistles. The podcast had released the interview early, and it was already going viral. Janet was ecstatic. "He just handed us victory on a silver platter." But Marcus remained cautious. "He's too smart for this to be an accident. This feels like a trap." His instinct proved right. Within an hour, Madison's released a statement claiming the interview had been deceptively edited and that they would be suing the podcast for defamation. They positioned Robert as another victim of Marcus's orchestrated campaign. The battle lines were drawn. Tomorrow's shareholders meeting would be the decisive moment. Everything they'd gathered, all the evidence, all the testimonies, it would all come down to what happened in that room. As the team finally dispersed in the early morning hours to grab a few hours of sleep, Marcus remained awake. He looked at the photo of his father on the mantel, a young man in a suit standing in front of a newly integrated restaurant, smiling broadly. "I hope I'm doing this right, Dad," he whispered. His phone buzzed one last time. The message was from a number he recognized: Robert Madison himself. "You could have taken the money. What happens tomorrow is on you." Marcus typed back a simple response. "See you at the meeting." The sun was beginning to rise over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In a few hours, the shareholders' meeting would begin. The final confrontation was at hand. Marcus thought about all the people who'd been turned away from Madison's over the years, made to feel unwelcome, unworthy, less than. Tomorrow, today, now, wasn't just about him. It was about every single one of them. He finally allowed himself to close his eyes, not to sleep, but to prepare. The biggest fight of his life was hours away, and he intended to win it. Not just for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been judged by their appearance rather than their character. The war with Madison's was about to reach its climax, and Marcus Johnson was ready for battle. The Beverly Wilshire Hotel looked like a fortress when Marcus arrived at 7 in the morning, 2 hours before the shareholders' meeting was scheduled to begin. Security guards lined the entrance, their faces stern and professional. Marcus recognized none of them from his previous visits to the hotel. Madison's had brought in their own team. Janet walked beside him, briefcase in hand, while Kevin and Judge Harrison followed close behind. Aisha was already inside, having gotten in earlier as a registered financial journalist, her camera ready to document everything. Marcus's mother had wanted to come, but he'd convinced her to stay home with the security team. The threats had escalated overnight, including a brick through her kitchen window, with a note that simply read, "Final warning." "Mr. Johnson." The lead security guard stepped forward, blocking their path. "I'm afraid this is a private event." Marcus pulled out his documentation. "I'm the landlord of the Madison's Beverly Hills location. I have legal right to attend any corporate meeting that discusses the tenant's financial stability and operational policies." The guard examined the papers, then spoke into his earpiece. Marcus could see Robert Madison through the glass doors pacing in the lobby while barking into his phone. After a tense moment, the guard stepped aside. "You may enter, Mr. Johnson. Your associates will need to wait outside." "They're my legal counsel and witnesses," Marcus protested. "The shareholder invitation extends only to you." Janet started to argue, but Marcus touched her arm. "It's fine. They want me alone in there. But they forgot something." He glanced at his watch, a new edition, as of this morning, one that looked like a simple Timex, but contained a sophisticated recording device. "I'm never really alone." Inside, the atmosphere was arctic. Madison's executives filled the ornate ballroom, their expressions ranging from hostile to nervous. Marcus spotted Sarah Martinez near the front, despite her supposed termination. Emma Thompson was there too, her wrist prominently bandaged. They'd assembled their entire army. Robert Madison stood at the podium, his silver hair perfectly styled, his navy suit impeccable. When he saw Marcus, his smile was razor-sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert announced to the room of about 60 shareholders and executives. "It seems we have an unexpected guest. Mr. Marcus Johnson, our landlord and recent agitator, has decided to join us." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some shareholders looked uncomfortable, others curious. Marcus noticed a faction near the back that seemed different from the typical Madison's crowd, younger, more diverse. The shareholders who'd reached out to him last night. "I'm here as an interested party," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "Your company's actions affect my property's reputation." "How convenient," Robert replied. "Well, since you're here, you can witness our announcement firsthand. Madison's will be terminating our lease at your Beverly Hills property, effective immediately. We've found a new location that better suits our needs." Marcus felt the trap closing, but maintained his composure. "You can't terminate without cause. Our contract is clear." "Oh, but we have cause." Sarah Martinez stood up, her voice triumphant. "Harassment by the landlord, creating an unsafe work environment. Your actions 2 days ago constitute a breach of the peaceful enjoyment clause." They'd planned this meticulously. By terminating the lease themselves, they'd avoid any penalties and could spin the narrative as escaping an abusive landlord. Marcus reached for his phone to text Janet, but another security guard stepped forward. "No phones during the meeting, sir. Company policy." Marcus was completely isolated. But then he noticed something. Aisha, in the press section, had her camera trained not on the podium, but on a side door. She'd seen something. The door opened, and in walked someone Marcus never expected to see. William Chen, Kevin's father, dressed in an expensive suit, flanked by 2 Madison's board members. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert Madison announced, "I'd like you to meet our newest board member and significant investor, William Chen. Mr. Chen has just purchased a 15% stake in Madison's, making him our second largest shareholder." Marcus's mind raced. Kevin's father. The pieces clicked into place. This was why Kevin had been able to access those documents, why he'd known exactly where to look. It had all been a setup. William Chen took the microphone. "My son Kevin recently came to Mr. Johnson with fabricated documents and recordings, part of an unfortunate attempt to gain attention for his struggling career. We deeply apologize for any confusion this may have caused." Marcus stood frozen. The betrayal was complete. Or was it? He looked at the press section again. Aisha's expression wasn't shocked. It was anticipatory. She knew something. Then Marcus heard it. A commotion in the hallway. Shouting voices, multiple people. The main ballroom doors burst open, and in streamed a group of about 30 people, all holding signs, all wearing t-shirts with Madison's logo crossed out. Leading them was Kevin Chen himself, very much not in collaboration with his father. "That's not my father," Kevin shouted, pointing at William Chen. "That's William Chang, Madison's head of security. My father's been dead for 5 years." The room erupted in chaos. Security moved to remove the protesters, but more kept coming. Judge Harrison had somehow organized a flash mob of every person he'd documented being discriminated against by Madison's. They filled the aisles, their presence undeniable. Robert Madison was screaming for security, but his team was overwhelmed. Shareholders were backing away from the confrontation, some taking out phones despite the no-phone policy. Marcus seized the moment. He jumped onto a chair so everyone could see him. These people were all turned away from Madison stores, not because they couldn't afford the products, but because they didn't fit the image Robert Madison wanted. "Lies," Robert shouted back. Security removed these people immediately. But something unexpected happened. One of the shareholders, an elderly woman in the diverse group Marcus had noticed earlier, stood up. "I want to hear what they have to say." "Mrs. Blackstone, please." Robert's voice was strained. Margaret Blackstone owned 8% of Madison's shares, enough to swing any major decision. "I've been concerned about our company's practices for some time," Mrs. Blackstone continued. "The lawsuits we've settled quietly, the NDAs we've required. Perhaps it's time for transparency." The fake William Chen tried to leave, but the real Kevin blocked his path. "Where are the recordings you stole from my apartment?" "I don't know what you're talking about," the man replied, but his nervousness was obvious. Marcus pulled out his phone, ignoring the security guard who stepped forward. "I have here an email from the real William Chen's estate lawyer confirming his death in 2019. This man is a fraud, Robert Madison's composure finally cracked. "This is an ambush, an illegal disruption of a private meeting. I'm calling the police." "Call them," Judge Harrison said, entering the room with Janet beside him. "I'm sure they'd be interested in identity fraud, breaking and entering, and conspiracy to commit extortion." Janet held up a tablet. "We've just filed an emergency injunction preventing Madisons from terminating their lease. We've also filed criminal charges against whoever impersonated Mr. Chen's deceased father." The fake William Chen made a break for the exit, but hotel security, the real hotel security, blocked his path. The Beverly Wilshire's manager had arrived, clearly unhappy about the chaos in his establishment. "Mr. Madison," the hotel manager said coldly, "I'm going to have to ask you to control your meeting or we'll shut it down." Robert's face was purple with rage. "This is Johnson's doing. He's orchestrated all of this." "No," a new voice said from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see a young black woman in a designer dress. "Mr. Johnson didn't orchestrate anything. I did." She walked forward with confidence Marcus recognized, but couldn't place. "My name is Denise Patterson. 3 years ago, I tried to buy an engagement ring at Madison's for my fiancée. I was a tech executive worth several $1,000,000, but I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt after a long flight. Your staff called security on me. They said I was casing the store for a robbery." She paused, letting that sink in. "That experience broke something in me, but it also motivated me. I've spent 3 years buying Madison stock little by little. As of yesterday, I own 12% of this company." Robert's assistant was frantically checking her phone, verifying the claim. Her nod confirmed it was true. Denise continued. "I didn't know about Mr. Johnson's situation until it went viral, but when I saw it, I knew it was time. Mrs. Blackstone and I have been in communication. Together with some other concerned shareholders, we control 31% of Madison's stock." "That's not enough for a takeover," Robert said, but his voice had lost its authority. "No," Denise agreed. "But it's enough to demand a vote on your leadership, Mr. Madison." The room was electric with tension. Shareholders were openly discussing among themselves now, the carefully controlled meeting having devolved into chaos. Sarah Martinez tried to regain control. "This is all irrelevant. We have security footage proving Mr. Johnson assaulted our employee." "You mean this security footage?" Aisha called out from the press section. She held up her laptop, showing a feed from Madison's own security system. But it wasn't from 2 days ago, it was from last night. The timestamp showed 3:47 a.m. On the screen, clear as day, was Sarah Martinez in the Madison store with Emma Thompson. Sarah was gripping Emma's wrist, twisting it hard enough to leave bruises. Emma was crying, begging her to stop. "You need to do this," Sarah's recorded voice said. "It's the only way to save the company. Take one for the team, Emma." Emma Thompson, sitting in the meeting, went pale. You said you'd fire me if I didn't. You said you'd make sure I never worked in retail again. The room exploded. Shareholders were shouting, some calling for Robert's resignation, others demanding explanations. The protesters were chanting, "Shame, shame, shame." Robert Madison looked around the room, seeing his empire crumbling. His eyes landed on Marcus with pure hatred. You destroyed something beautiful. Madison stood for excellence, for distinction, for quality. No, Marcus replied, his voice cutting through the noise. Madison stood for discrimination, for making people feel less than human, for perpetuating a system that judges worth by appearance rather than character. Mrs. Blackstone stood again. I motion for an immediate vote of no confidence in Robert Madison's leadership. Seconded, Denise Patterson called out. This is illegal, Robert protested. You can't just... According to Madison's corporate bylaws, Judge Harrison interrupted, reading from his phone. Any shareholder meeting with more than 50% of shares represented can call for emergency votes on leadership. By my count, we have 67% of shares in this room. The vote was swift and brutal. When the dust settled, Robert Madison had been removed as CEO by a margin of 48% to 19%, with 33% abstaining. But the drama wasn't over. As Robert stood at the podium defeated, he pulled out a small recorder. If I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me. He pressed play. His own voice filled the room, but also others. Board members, executives, even some shareholders, all discussing not just discrimination, but tax evasion, bribery of city officials, and systematic fraud. I've been recording every conversation for 20 years, Robert said with a manic smile. If Madison's falls, you all fall with me. The room went silent. Then Marcus heard something that made him smile. The whir of helicopter blades outside. He checked his phone. Janet had been busy. That would be the FBI, Marcus announced. They received an anonymous tip about financial crimes at Madison's last night, complete with documentation. Robert's face went from red to white. You sent them information that implicates you, too. You're on these recordings. No, Marcus said. I'm not. Because I've never done business with Madison's before this week. But you just confessed to 20 years of crimes in front of 60 witnesses, and, he gestured to Aisha, at least one camera that's been live streaming this entire meeting to 200,000 viewers. The FBI agents entered the ballroom, their credentials visible, their purpose clear. The lead agent walked directly to Robert Madison. Sir, we need you to come with us for questioning. As Robert was led away, he turned back to Marcus one last time. This isn't over. I have resources you can't imagine. So do I, Marcus replied. The difference is, I'm using mine to build something better. Sarah Martinez tried to slip out during the commotion, but Janet intercepted her. The district attorney would like a word about those assault charges you filed. Emma Thompson was crying, apologizing to anyone who would listen. Some of the protesters actually comforted her, recognizing her as another victim of Madison's toxic culture. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, with FBI agents interviewing board members and shareholders, fleeing Denise Patterson approached Marcus. We need to talk about Madison's future, she said. With Mrs. Blackstone and the other shareholders, we want to rebuild this company. Make it what it should have been. Will you help? Marcus looked around the room. At Kevin, who'd risked everything to expose the truth, despite his father's death being used against him. At Judge Harrison, who'd spent years fighting this fight alone. At Aisha, whose quick thinking had captured crucial evidence. At the protesters, each with their own story of humiliation and discrimination. On one condition, Marcus said. Jasmine Washington runs the Beverly Hills store, and we implement every change I proposed, plus a few more. Done, Denise said immediately. We're also thinking of a new CEO. Someone with a track record of turning around troubled companies. Someone with integrity. She was looking at Marcus meaningfully, but he shook his head. I have my own companies to run, but I know someone perfect for the job. He called out to Janet. Hey, didn't you run that luxury goods company before you became a lawyer? Janet's smile was predatory. 5 years, tripled their revenue, and expanded to 12 countries. Denise extended her hand to Janet. Interested in a new challenge. As they shook hands, Marcus felt his phone buzz. A text from his mother. Watching the live stream. Your father would be so proud. Come home when you're done saving the world. The Beverly Wilshire staff was diplomatically ushering everyone out, eager to restore order to their establishment. As Marcus walked through the lobby, he passed a group of Madison's employees, all looking shell-shocked. One of them, a young man who'd been silent throughout the confrontation, approached him. Mr. Johnson, I'm Tyler. I've worked at Madison's for 2 years. I've hated every minute of their policies, but I needed the job. What happens to us now? Marcus looked at the group of employees, all young, all probably struggling with student loans and rent like Tyler. That depends. Are you willing to be part of the change to help build a Madison's that actually serves all customers with respect? Yes, Tyler said immediately. Most of us never agreed with the discrimination. We just didn't have the power to fight it. You do now, Marcus told him. Report to Jasmine Washington tomorrow. She's going to need good people to help transform that store. Outside, the media circus was in full swing. Reporters from every major outlet thrust microphones at Marcus, shouting questions. Mr. Johnson, did you plan this takeover? Are you going to sue Madison's? What's next for you? Marcus stopped at the top of the hotel steps, looking out at the crowd. The protesters had gathered behind him, their signs held high. Kevin stood to his left, Judge Harrison to his right. Aisha was filming everything. What's next? Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly, is accountability. Madison's is just one company. There are thousands more with the same practices, the same discrimination, the same contempt for anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of worthy. He pulled out the Casio watch he'd been wearing, holding it up. This watch tells time just as well as a Rolex. The only difference is perception prejudice and the stories we tell ourselves about who belongs and who doesn't. A reporter called out, "But Mr. Johnson, you're a billionaire. You had the power to fight back. What about regular people?" You're right, Marcus admitted. I had advantages most people don't. But look at what really brought Madison's down. It wasn't my money. It was Kevin Chen's courage in preserving evidence. It was Aisha's quick thinking with her camera. It was Judge Harrison's years of documentation. It was every one of these protesters standing up and saying no more. He gestured to the crowd. Change doesn't come from one person with power. It comes from all of us working together, refusing to accept discrimination as normal. Another reporter shouted, "Robert Madison's lawyer says you orchestrated this entire thing as a publicity stunt." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Madison's orchestrated their own downfall with decades of discrimination. All I did was shine a light on it. As the questions continued, Marcus noticed something that made him pause. Across the street, standing alone, was Jasmine Washington. She looked overwhelmed, probably trying to process that she'd just gone from floor employee to store manager. Marcus excused himself from the reporters and walked over to her. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "Running the store, changing the culture. What if I fail?" "You won't," Marcus said simply. "You know why. Because you remember what it felt like to watch discrimination happen and not be able to stop it. That memory will guide every decision you make. But the other employees, the ones who were part of the old system, give them a chance to change. Some will surprise you, others won't, and you'll have to let them go. But lead with compassion, Jasmine. That's what was missing before." She nodded, standing a little straighter. "Mr. Johnson, why did you really do all this? It wasn't just about the discrimination you faced, was it?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about his father, about all the times he'd watched him come home, diminished by a world that constantly told him he was less than. "My father died when I was 23, Marcus said. He was a brilliant engineer, had patents innovations that changed the industry, but he spent his whole life fighting for respect that should have been freely given. He once told me that dignity shouldn't be a luxury item." He looked back at the Beverly Wilshire where FBI agents were still leading people out. Madison's turned dignity into something you could only purchase with the right appearance, the right accent, the right skin color. So yeah, this was personal, but it was also necessary. Janet approached her phone in hand. "Marcus, you need to see this." On the screen was a news alert. 3 other luxury retailers had announced immediate diversity and inclusion initiatives clearly spooked by Madison's downfall. The hashtag Dignity Not Luxury was trending worldwide. "It's starting," Janet said. "Real change." But Marcus's phone rang with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello, Mr. Johnson." The voice was unfamiliar cold. "You've made some very powerful enemies today. Robert Madison has friends in places you can't imagine. This isn't over." "Who is this?" "Someone who believes in maintaining certain standards. Someone who thinks you've upset a balance that's existed for generations. Enjoy your victory, Mr. Johnson. It won't last long." The line went dead. Kevin, who'd been standing nearby, looked concerned. "What was that about?" "Nothing," Marcus lied. "Just someone bitter about losing." But as they walked back to the cars, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was just beginning. Madison's had been a single battle in a much larger war. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in his home office exhausted but unable to rest. The news coverage was non-stop. Madison's stock had plummeted. Robert Madison's arrest was the lead story on every channel. His mother brought him coffee. "The Reverend called. The whole congregation is celebrating. You've given people hope." "Have I?" Marcus asked. "Or have I just painted a bigger target on my back?" "Both," his mother said simply. "That's what leadership means, taking the hits so others don't have to." Aisha knocked on the door. "Mr. Johnson, that interview you promised." Marcus gestured for her to sit. Over the next hour, he told her everything. Not just about Madison's, but about growing up black in America, about the 1,000 small cuts of discrimination that shaped a life, about why this fight mattered beyond luxury retail. "Can I ask you something off the record?" Aisha said when they were done. "That phone call earlier, the threat. You're scared, aren't you?" Marcus considered lying, maintaining the image of the fearless crusader. But Aisha deserved honesty. "Terrified," he admitted. "But my father taught me something. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear." As Aisha packed up her equipment, she paused at the door. "Mr. Johnson, thank you. Not just for today, but for showing us that fighting back is possible." After she left, Marcus stood at his window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Robert Madison was in federal custody. Sarah Martinez was facing charges. Emma Thompson was probably contemplating her choices. But also out there were thousands of people who'd watched what happened today and felt empowered. People who'd stand up the next time they faced discrimination. People who'd demand better. His phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. "Just held my first staff meeting. Half the employees cried, the other half applauded. Change is hard, but it's happening." Then another from Denise Patterson. "Board meeting tomorrow. We're announcing Madison's new direction. You've started something that won't stop here." And one more from Judge Harrison. 50 years I've been fighting this fight. Today was the first time I felt like we might actually win." Marcus smiled, exhaustion finally overtaking him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new battles. The voice on the phone had made that clear. But tonight, for just a few hours, he'd allow himself to savor this victory. As he headed to bed, he stopped by his father's photo one more time. "We did it, Dad. We made them see us. Really see us." The photo, of course, didn't respond. But Marcus could swear his father's smile seemed a little wider, a little prouder. Outside Los Angeles hummed with its usual energy, unaware that in boardrooms and boutiques across the city, conversations were happening that had never happened before. Policies were being reviewed. Training programs were being developed. The reverberations of what happened at Madison's were spreading like ripples on a pond. The war wasn't over. It might never be truly over. But today, Marcus Johnson had won a crucial battle. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. The first sign of trouble came at 4:37 a.m., just 3 days after Madison's shareholders meeting. Marcus woke to the sound of shattering glass downstairs. He grabbed the baseball bat he'd started keeping beside his bed and crept toward the stairs, his heart pounding. The security system should have been screaming, but the house was eerily silent. In the living room, he found Thomas unconscious on the floor, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. The security monitors had been smashed, and spray-painted across his father's portrait were the words, "You should have taken the money." Marcus called 911, then Janet checked on his mother, who was thankfully unharmed in the guest suite, the panic room he'd insisted she use, locked from the inside. As paramedics loaded Thomas into an ambulance, the security company arrived to assess the damage. Their conclusion was chilling. Whoever did this had professional-level knowledge of the system. "This wasn't random," the lead technician said. "They knew exactly which wires to cut, which sensors to disable. This was surgical." Detective Hughes arrived as the sun was rising, looking grim. "Mr. Johnson, we need to talk about increasing your protection. This escalation is exactly what they want," Marcus interrupted. "They want me scared, hiding, backing down." "They want you dead," Hughes said bluntly. "We intercepted communications suggesting there's a bounty on your head. $50,000 to anyone who makes you disappear." Marcus's mother, who'd finally emerged from the panic room, gasped. "Marcus, maybe we should leave town for a while." "No," Marcus said firmly. "That's what Robert Madison's associates want. For us to run to hide, to let them rebuild their empire of discrimination in peace." His phone rang. It was Jasmine, and she was crying. "Mr. Johnson, they burned down my car, in my own driveway. The fire department said it was arson." Then Kevin called. "Marcus, my mom's hospital just called. They're transferring her to a different facility. They say it's for better care, but the new place is 3 hours away and not in her insurance network." The attacks were coordinated, systematic. Everyone who'd stood with Marcus was being targeted. But backing down wasn't an option, not anymore. Janet arrived with unexpected news. "The FBI wants to put you in protective custody. They're taking the threats seriously." "Absolutely not," Marcus said. "We have the Madison's board meeting tomorrow. The new direction announcement. If I hide now, everything we fought for dies." "Then at least let me arrange private security," Janet insisted. "I know a firm ex-military completely discreet." Marcus agreed reluctantly. Within hours, his home had become a fortress with armed guards at every entrance. It felt like surrender, but he knew it was necessary. That afternoon, Denise Patterson called with troubling news. 3 board members have suddenly decided to sell their shares. They're not saying why, but I think we both know. Someone's applying pressure. Who's buying? Shell companies, all of them. But I've got my people tracing the real source. In the meantime, we need to move fast on the reforms before we lose control. Marcus was reviewing security arrangements when Aisha texted, "You need to see this, now." She'd sent a link to a news article that had just broken. Tech Billionaire's Dark Past, the real Marcus Johnson story. The article was a hit piece filled with half-truths and outright lies. It claimed Marcus had built his fortune through insider trading, that he'd destroyed competitors through corporate espionage, that his whole image was a carefully crafted lie. They'd even dug up college acquaintances who claimed he'd been a drug dealer, complete with obviously doctored photos. Within an hour, the story was everywhere, Cable news was running segments questioning everything about Marcus, from his business success to his motives for attacking Madison's. The narrative was shifting again, and this time, Marcus didn't have an easy counter. "We need to respond," Janet said, pacing his office. "Every minute we stay silent, this becomes more real in people's minds." But before Marcus could respond, another crisis hit. The front gate security called up. "Sir, there's someone here demanding to see you. Says he's Robert Madison's son." Marcus had forgotten Robert had a son. James Madison, 35, a doctor who'd notably stayed away from the family business. Marcus had him brought in under heavy guard. James was nothing like his father in appearance, slight where Robert was imposing, soft-spoken where Robert was bombastic. His hands shook as he sat down. "Mr. Johnson, I need your help. They have my daughter." Marcus's blood went cold. "What do you mean they have her?" "My father's associates. The people he's been working with for years. I never knew how deep it went until yesterday when they took Lucy. She's only 8. James was crying now. "They say if I don't convince you to back off, to sell the building and drop everything, they'll... "We need to call the FBI," Marcus said immediately. "No!" James almost screamed. "They said no police or she dies. They gave me proof they have her." He pulled out his phone, showing a video of a little girl in what looked like a warehouse crying for her daddy. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Using a child as leverage was beyond anything he'd imagined, even from Madison's associates. "James, who exactly are these people? Your father's business partners?" "More than that," James said, wiping his eyes. "My father was part of something bigger. A network of luxury brands all working together to maintain what they call standards. They share blacklists of undesirable customers, coordinate pricing, even influence city planning to keep certain people out of certain areas." The scope of what Marcus had uncovered was expanding exponentially. This wasn't just about one store's discrimination. It was about systemic exclusion at the highest levels of society. "They meet monthly," James continued. "My father brought me once trying to get me involved. I refused, which is why he cut me off. But I remember faces' names. These aren't just business owners, Mr. Johnson. These are judges, police commissioners, city councilors, people with real power." Marcus's phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but this time he recognized the voice immediately. Robert Madison calling from federal custody. "Johnson, you need to listen very carefully. You've stumbled into something much bigger than you understand. These people don't play games. They've taken my granddaughter to ensure my silence. If you want that little girl to live, you'll do exactly as they say." "You're part of this," Marcus accused. "You created this monster." "I was a small part of something that existed long before me and will exist long after you're gone," Robert said. "But even I didn't know how far they'd go. Please, Johnson, my granddaughter is innocent. Don't let your crusade cost her life." Marcus looked at James, whose eyes were pleading. The moral calculus was impossible: save an innocent child by abandoning the fight for justice, or continue fighting and risk her life. "I need proof she's safe first," Marcus said. "A video call. Let me see she's unharmed." "1 hour," Robert said. "You'll get your proof. Then you have 6 hours to announce your withdrawal from anything Madison's related." The call ended. Marcus immediately called Janet. "We need an emergency meeting. Everyone. Kevin, Judge Harrison, Denise, Aisha. This just became about more than corporate discrimination." Within the hour, they'd assembled in Marcus's fortified home. He explained the situation, watching their faces shift from determination to horror. "We can't let them hurt a child," Aisha said immediately. "But if we back down now, they win," Judge Harrison countered. "And they'll know that threatening children is an effective tactic." Denise had been quietly working on her laptop. "I might have something. Those shell companies buying Madison's shares, they all trace back to a single entity, Aurelius Holdings. And Aurelius has a registered address." She showed them the screen. The address was for a private club in downtown LA, one of those places that didn't even have a sign where membership was by invitation only and cost more than most people's houses. The Pantheon Club, Judge Harrison breathed. I've been trying to investigate them for decades. They're untouchable. Not anymore, Marcus said. If that's where they're coordinating from, that's where we hit them. Hit them how? Kevin asked. These people have judges in their pocket, police commissioners. You can't just walk in there. Marcus's phone chimed. The promised video call was coming through. On the screen, Lucy Madison appeared frightened, but apparently unharmed. She was in a room with toys and books, not the warehouse from the earlier video. Uncle Marcus, the little girl said, obviously coached. They said you can make me go home if you stop being mean to Grandpa's friends. The video cut off after just 10 seconds, but it was enough. Marcus had seen something the kidnappers probably hadn't noticed: a partial logo on one of the toys. It was from a specific toy store that only had 3 locations in Los Angeles. Kevin, Marcus said urgently, can you trace where that video came from? The metadata? Kevin was already pulling out his laptop. Give me 5 minutes. While Kevin worked, Denise's phone rang. She answered, her face paling as she listened. 3 more board members just sold. We've lost majority control of Madison's. The buyers are all Aurelius Holdings subsidiaries. The takeback was happening in real time. Everything they'd fought for was being systematically undone. Got it, Kevin announced. The video was routed through several proxies, but the originating signal comes from... He paused, double-checking the Pantheon Club building. She's there, James said desperately. We have to get her out. We can't just storm a private club, Janet warned. We need legal cause. Marcus stood up, his decision made. We don't storm it. I walk in the front door. Everyone started protesting at once, but Marcus held up his hand. Denise, you said Aurelius Holdings owns those shares now. As the landlord of Madison's flagship store, I have the right to meet with any majority shareholder about the property. It's in the lease agreement. That's insane, Janet said. You'll be walking into a trap. Yes, Marcus agreed. But I'll be walking in with something they don't expect. He pulled out his phone and started typing. Aisha, how many followers does your live stream have now? After the Madison's incident, about 2 million. Perfect. You're about to get exclusive access to the most secretive club in Los Angeles. The plan was audacious and dangerous. Marcus would go to the Pantheon Club ostensibly to negotiate his surrender, but he'd be wearing multiple hidden cameras, all streaming live to Aisha's platform. The moment anything incriminating happened, millions would witness it in real time. They won't let me in with cameras, Aisha protested. They won't know about the cameras, Kevin said, understanding immediately. I can modify some devices. Pen cameras, button cameras, even a camera in your earring. All streaming to the cloud simultaneously. Judge Harrison stood up. If you're doing this, you need legal protection. I'm calling in favors. We'll have federal marshals standing by ready to move the moment we have evidence of kidnapping. As they prepared, James grabbed Marcus's arm. Why are you doing this? You could walk away. Take their deal. Live your life. Marcus thought about his father again, about all the fights he'd walked away from to keep his family safe. Because someone has to stand up. Because if we let them use a child as leverage once, they'll do it again. Because your daughter deserves a world where her grandfather's friends can't just take her to protect their privilege. 2 hours later, Marcus stood outside the Pantheon Club, a nondescript building that could have been mistaken for a law firm or private bank. Kevin had done his work well. Marcus wore cameras in his watch, his tie pin, and his belt buckle. Aisha was in a van across the street with Janet and a technical team ready to broadcast everything. The doorman looked at Marcus with surprise. Mr. Johnson, we weren't expecting you. Tell whoever's in charge that I'm here to discuss the Madison situation. They'll want to see me. After a tense moment, the doorman stepped aside. Marcus entered a world of old money and older power. The interior was all dark wood and leather oil paintings of stern-faced men watching from the walls. The very air felt heavy with centuries of privilege. He was led to a private room where 5 men sat around a table. Marcus recognized 2 of them, a federal judge he'd seen on the news and a police commissioner who'd recently been praised for his tough-on-crime stance. The others were unfamiliar, but radiated the same aura of untouchable authority. "Mr. Johnson," the man at the head of the table said. He was perhaps 70, with silver hair and cold gray eyes. "I'm Harrison Blackstone. I believe you know why you're here." "Where's the girl?" Marcus demanded. "Safe. For now. Sit." Marcus remained standing. "I want to see her first." Blackstone smiled thinly. "You're not in a position to make demands. You've cost us considerable trouble, Mr. Johnson. Madison's was just one piece of a larger ecosystem, one that's maintained order in this city for generations." "You mean maintained discrimination?" "I mean maintained standards," Blackstone corrected. "Do you know what happens when those standards fall? Property values plummet. Crime increases. The character of neighborhoods changes. We've prevented that. Through illegal discrimination and conspiracy." The police commissioner laughed. "Illegal. We make the laws, Mr. Johnson. We interpret them. We enforce them. Your little recording devices, yes, we know about them, mean nothing. This room is shielded. No signals in or out." Marcus's heart sank. They'd been prepared for his plan. Blackstone continued. "You're going to sign papers transferring your building to our holding company for a generous but not suspicious sum. You're going to publicly apologize for your actions against Madison's, claiming you were misguided. And you're going to disappear from public life. And if I refuse, then James Madison will never see his daughter again. And you, Mr. Johnson, will discover that there are worse things than death. Your mother, for instance, is currently at home with only 2 guards. Guards who work for a security company that we happen to own." Marcus's phone vibrated. A text from Janet. "They're jamming us, but we have audio through your phone in your pocket. Keep them talking." He needed to buy time to get them to say something incriminating that the audio could capture. "You're right." Marcus said, his shoulders sagging in apparent defeat. "You win, but I need to understand something first. How long has this been going on?" Blackstone smiled, pleased by what he saw as capitulation. "The Pantheon Club has existed since 1887. We've guided this city's development from a dusty pueblo to a global metropolis. Every major decision, every significant development has had our input, including keeping certain people out." "Especially that," the judge interjected. "Do you think Los Angeles became what it is by accident? We've carefully curated who lives where, who shops, who belongs where. It's social engineering at its finest. And Madison's was part of this. Robert Madison's grandfather was one of our founding members," Blackstone explained. "Each generation has contributed to maintaining our vision. Luxury retail was just one tool among many." Marcus felt his phone vibrate again. Janet. "FBI is moving. Keep them talking. 2 more minutes." "But why take the girl? She's innocent in all this." The police commissioner stood up, walking to a side door. "Insurance. Robert started having doubts in federal custody. Started thinking about making a deal. We needed leverage." He opened the door, and there was Lucy Madison sitting on a couch playing with an iPad, seemingly unaware of the danger she was in. "Daddy?" James rushed forward, but one of the men grabbed him. "Not yet," Blackstone said. "Mr. Johnson needs to sign first." Papers were produced. Marcus looked them over, buying precious seconds. The transfer documents would give Aurelius Holdings his building for 1/3 of its value. The public statement was even worse, basically admitting he'd fabricated the discrimination claims for publicity. His phone buzzed one more time. Janet. "Now." The lights went out. In the darkness, Marcus heard shouting, doors crashing open. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing FBI agents flooding the room, weapons drawn. "Nobody move, FBI Harrison Blackstone, you're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy, and violation of federal civil rights laws." The police commissioner reached for his gun, but an agent was faster, tackling him to the ground. The judge tried to run, but found the exits blocked. Marcus rushed to Lucy, scooping her up and carrying her to James, who was sobbing with relief. The little girl seemed more confused than frightened, the criminals having apparently treated her well, to avoid adding physical abuse to their charges. As the FBI led the conspirators out in handcuffs, Blackstone stopped in front of Marcus. "You have no idea what you've done. The order we maintain the structure. Without it, this city will descend into chaos." "No," Marcus replied. "Without it, this city will finally have justice." Outside, the street was chaos. News vans had materialized, tipped off by Aisha's interrupted stream. The arrest of a federal judge and police commissioner was immediate headline news. But Marcus barely noticed, focused on making sure Lucy was safe. Detective Hughes appeared, looking exhausted but satisfied. "We've had the Pantheon Club under surveillance for months, but we could never get inside. Your actions gave us the probable cause we needed. We're seizing everything, documents, hard drives, records going back decades." "How many people are involved?" Marcus asked. "Dozens at the highest levels, maybe hundreds overall. This is going to reshape Los Angeles politics, business, everything." Janet approached with her phone. "Marcus, you need to see this." The video showed Robert Madison in federal custody speaking to cameras. "I want to make a full confession. Everything I did at Madison's, everyone involved in the Pantheon Club's conspiracy. I'll testify against all of them in exchange for a reduced sentence and witness protection for my family." The dominoes were falling. Within hours, more arrests were made. City officials, business leaders, even some celebrities who'd been part of the Discrimination network. Each arrest led to more revelations, more names, more crimes exposed. But the personal cost was mounting. Marcus's mother had been moved to a safe house after the security company revelation. Jasmine was under police protection after more threats. Kevin's mother had been moved to a secure medical facility. That evening, Marcus stood in his empty house, looking at the damaged portrait of his father. Aisha had arrived to do a follow-up interview. "How does it feel?" she asked. "You've exposed one of the biggest conspiracies in Los Angeles history." "Empty," Marcus admitted. "Exhausted, scared of what comes next." "But you won. The Pantheon Club is finished. Madison's is being reformed. The Discrimination network is being dismantled." "For now," Marcus said. "But people like Blackstone don't just disappear. They have money hidden away, connections we haven't found yet. This isn't over." His phone rang. It was Denise Patterson. "Marcus, emergency board meeting. With the arrests, the seized shares are being released. We have a chance to regain control of Madison's, but we need to move fast." An hour later, Marcus sat in a conference room with the few board members who hadn't been arrested or fled. Denise was laying out her vision for Madison's future. "We're going to turn Madison's into a model for inclusive luxury. Every store will be required to serve every customer with equal respect. We're implementing blind shopping programs where personal shoppers won't see customers until after they've selected items. We're hiring from underserved communities. We're making real change." "The brand will be destroyed," one older board member protested. "Our traditional customers won't stand for this." "Then we'll find new customers," Janet said, having officially accepted the CEO position. "There's a massive untapped market of people who have money but have been made to feel unwelcome in luxury retail. We're going to welcome them." Marcus's phone buzzed with a message that made him smile. It was from Jasmine at the Beverly Hills store. "First day of new policies. We had a line around the block, customers we'd never seen before, all wanting to support the change. Sales are up 300%. Maybe there was hope after all. Later that night, Marcus finally made it home to find an unexpected visitor, Judge Harrison, holding a thick folder. "I've been investigating the Pantheon Club for 30 years, the judge said. "I thought today would be my vindication, but I found something in their seized records that you need to see." He pulled out a document dated 1962. It was a Pantheon Club memo about managing the Negro problem in Los Angeles. One name on the distribution list made Marcus's blood run cold: William Johnson. His grandfather. "That's impossible," Marcus said. "My grandfather was a janitor. He died when my father was 10. "Look closer," Judge Harrison said. The memo detailed payments made to certain black community leaders to discourage civil rights protests to maintain peace in exchange for minor concessions. William Johnson had received $50,000 a fortune in 1962 to convince other black families not to move into certain neighborhoods. Marcus felt his world tilting. His grandfather had been part of the system, had taken money to maintain segregation. "Your father never knew," Judge Harrison said gently. "But the Pantheon Club did. It's why they were so confident you'd eventually make a deal. They thought it was in your blood." Marcus stared at the document, understanding flooding through him. His whole life his father had fought against discrimination, never knowing his own father had been complicit in it. The cycle of compromise and resistance, of survival and principle, was more complex than Marcus had ever imagined. "What do I do with this?" Marcus asked. "That's up to you. But remember, your grandfather made his choices in a different time, under different pressures. He probably thought he was protecting his family. Your father made different choices, and now you've made yours." After Judge Harrison left, Marcus sat alone in his study, the weight of everything crushing down on him. The victory felt hollow, now tainted by the revelation about his grandfather. His mother found him there an hour later. "I heard," she said simply. "You knew?" "I suspected. Your father did too near the end. But he chose to honor the man his father tried to be, not the compromises he made. How do I reconcile this fighting against a system my own grandfather helped maintain?" His mother sat beside him, taking his hand. "By understanding that every generation has the chance to be better than the last. Your grandfather survived. Your father resisted. You conquered. That's progress." The next morning brought a new crisis. Several of the arrested Pantheon Club members had made bail, and their lawyers were already working to discredit the evidence. They claimed entrapment, illegal surveillance, violations of their constitutional rights. Worse, a new narrative was emerging in certain media circles. Marcus Johnson as a radical destroyer of tradition. Someone who'd torn down institutions that had built Los Angeles. Conservative commentators were calling him a reverse racist who wanted to punish success. But support was growing too. Civil rights organizations were hailing him as a hero. Other cities were investigating their own versions of the Pantheon Club. The hashtag #BreakTheClub was trending globally. Madison's held a press conference announcing their new policies. Janet stood at the podium flanked by Jasmine and other diverse employees. "Madison's has been reborn," Janet announced. "We're not just changing policies, we're changing our entire culture. Every customer will be welcomed. Every employee will be valued. Luxury will be defined by quality and service, not by exclusion." The response was immediate and divided. Some traditional customers announced boycotts, but new customers flooded in, eager to support the transformation. Sales projections showed potential for significant growth once the transition stabilized. Marcus watched from his office, feeling disconnected from it all. The victory he'd fought for was happening, but the cost kept mounting. Kevin called to report that his mother's condition had worsened from the stress. Aisha was dealing with death threats from Pantheon Club sympathizers. Everyone who'd stood with Marcus was paying a price. That afternoon, he received an unexpected visitor. Emma Thompson, the employee who'd been forced to file false assault charges, stood nervously at his door. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Sarah Martinez wasn't just following orders. She has recordings of every conversation with Pantheon Club members. She was building her own insurance policy." "Where are these recordings?" "Hidden in the Madison's corporate servers. She created a ghost directory, invisible, unless you know exactly where to look." Emma provided the access codes, and within hours, Kevin had retrieved terabytes of data. The recordings were explosive, not just discrimination, but bribery, tax evasion, and discussions of violence against those who opposed them. "This is it," Janet said, reviewing the files. "This ensures none of them escape justice." But Marcus felt no satisfaction. Each revelation showed how deep the corruption went, how many people had known and done nothing. The system hadn't just been broken, it had been deliberately shattered and reconstructed to serve the few at the expense of the many. As the sun set on another chaotic day, Marcus stood on his balcony looking out at Los Angeles. The city looked the same, but everything had changed. The Pantheon Club's influence was broken, Madison's was being reformed, and the conversation about discrimination had shifted nationally. His phone rang. It was Reverend Patterson. "Marcus, I wanted you to know your father would be proud, not just of what you accomplished, but of how you handled learning about your grandfather." "I don't know if I handled it well at all." "You didn't let it stop you. That's what matters. Every generation faces the choice to perpetuate or break cycles. You chose to break them." After the call, Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his laptop and began writing a statement not for the press but for himself, a reckoning with everything that had happened. He wrote about his grandfather's compromises, his father's struggles, his own privileges and responsibilities. He wrote about the cost of change and the price of silence. He wrote about Lucy Madison, innocent, but used as a pawn, and about all the unnamed people who'd been turned away from places they had every right to enter. As he finished, his phone lit up with a message from Jasmine. "Mr. Johnson, something amazing happened today. A young black girl came into the store with her grandmother. The grandmother had been turned away from Madison's in 1987. Today she bought her granddaughter a necklace for her sweet 16. Both of them cried. So did I." Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile in days. This was why it mattered. Not the corporate battles or the headlines, but the individual moments of dignity restored. The war against discrimination would continue. The Pantheon Club might be broken, but its ideas would persist in other forms, other places. There would always be those who believed in exclusion, in maintaining hierarchies based on appearance rather than character. But there would also always be those willing to fight back. And now they had a template, a proof that even the most entrenched systems could be challenged and changed. Marcus closed his laptop and prepared for bed, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight, he allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that his father's dreams of equality weren't naive. Hope that his grandfather's compromises hadn't been in vain if they led to this moment. Hope that Lucy Madison would grow up in a world where she'd never have to wonder if she belonged. The transformation of Madison's would take months, maybe years. The legal battles against the Pantheon Club members would be lengthy and complex. The social reverberations would continue for generations. But change had begun. And once begun, real change was impossible to stop. 6 months had passed since the Pantheon Club's exposure, and Marcus thought the worst was behind him. He was wrong. The call came at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as he was reviewing the quarterly reports showing Madison's remarkable transformation under Janet's leadership. "Mr. Johnson." The voice was unfamiliar, professional. "This is Director Patricia Hayes from the SEC. We need to discuss your trading activities from 2019. Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What trading activities?" "We've received documentation suggesting insider trading related to your acquisition of the Westfield Technology Group. Documentation that appears quite credible." "That's impossible. That acquisition was completely legal." "I'm sure it was, Mr. Johnson, but we still need to investigate. Can you come to our offices tomorrow, or should we send agents to escort you?" After hanging up, Marcus immediately called Janet. "They're coming after me from a different angle now. The SEC. "The timing isn't coincidental," Janet said. "Harrison Blackstone made bail yesterday. His lawyers have been promising a counteroffensive." The next morning, Marcus sat in the SEC offices surrounded by investigators who picked apart every transaction he'd made in the last decade. They had documents he'd never seen before, emails that looked authentic, but contained conversations he'd never had. This email shows you discussing confidential information with Thomas Chen Westfield's CFO 3 weeks before the acquisition announcement. Director Hayes said, sliding a paper across the table. Marcus studied it. The email address was his, the writing style close enough to be convincing, but he'd never written it. This is fabricated. Our technical analysis says otherwise. The metadata checks out. The server logs confirm it was sent from your IP address. Then someone hacked my system 3 years ago and planted it. Hayes leaned back, studying him. Mr. Johnson, I'm going to be frank. We have enough here for an indictment, but I don't think you're stupid enough to leave such obvious evidence. Someone wants you destroyed and they're using us to do it. So you'll drop the investigation. I can't. The evidence is too substantial to ignore. But I can give you time. Find proof these are fabricated or you'll be arrested within the week. Marcus left the building to find reporters already gathered. Someone had leaked the investigation. Within hours, his company's stock price plummeted. 3 major investors pulled out of his latest venture. The narrative was shifting again. Marcus Johnson, the crusader against discrimination, was just another corrupt billionaire. Kevin was waiting at Marcus's house with his laptop. I've been analyzing those emails. They're sophisticated forgeries, but they made one mistake. The encryption signature uses an algorithm that wasn't released until 6 months after these emails were supposedly sent. Can you prove it? Given time, yes. But Marcus, there's something else. Remember the woman who called you 6 months ago, the one warning about retaliation? Marcus barely remembered so many threats had come in those first days. Vaguely. I traced that call. It came from inside Westfield Technology Group. Someone there has been planning this for months. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. It was Jasmine, and she was panicking. Mr. Johnson, something terrible has happened. We just got notice that Madison's insurance has been canceled. All of it. No company will cover us. That's illegal. They can't just... They can if they claim we're too high risk. 3 insurance executives just announced they have evidence that the new inclusive policies have led to increased theft and liability issues. Marcus knew it was another lie, but it was a clever one. Without insurance, Madison's couldn't operate. They'd have to close within days. Janet called next. Marcus board meeting in an hour. Some members are panicking. They want to reverse the inclusive policies to get insurance back. The counterattack was coordinated and brilliant. Attack Marcus personally through the SEC, then strangle Madison's financially, forcing them to choose between closure and returning to discrimination. At the board meeting, the atmosphere was tense. Half the board wanted to stand firm, the other half wanted to save the company at any cost. We've come too far to go back now, Denise Patterson argued. We won't have a company to go forward with, another member countered. Without insurance, we're finished. Marcus stood up. There's another option. I'll personally insure Madison's through my investment firm. That's hundreds of millions in potential liability. David Chen, his CFO, whispered urgently. If anything goes wrong, it could bankrupt you. Then nothing better go wrong, Marcus replied. The board voted narrowly to accept his offer, but Marcus could see doubt in their eyes. How many more battles could they fight? That evening, Marcus was reviewing security footage from his offices, looking for evidence of the hack that planted those emails when Thomas burst in. Sir, we have a problem. There's a woman at the gate. Says she has information about the Westfield situation, but will only talk to you. Alone. Marcus found her waiting in a car outside his estate. She was perhaps 45, professionally dressed, but with eyes that darted nervously. He recognized her vaguely. She'd been at some tech conferences. I'm Patricia Westbrook, she said. I was Thomas Chen's secretary at Westfield. I know who planted those emails. Who? Thomas himself. He never forgave you for exposing his insider trading during the acquisition. He's been planning revenge ever since. But he went to prison. For 18 months. He got out 8 months ago. Harrison Blackstone reached out to him, offered him resources and protection if he helped destroy you. She handed Marcus a flash drive. Everything's on here. Recordings of Thomas discussing the plan documents, showing how they fabricated the emails, even video of him accessing your servers remotely. Why are you giving me this? Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Because Thomas destroyed my life too, when I wouldn't help him with his original insider trading. I lost everything: my job, my reputation, my marriage. I've been waiting for a chance to expose him. Marcus studied the drive. It could be salvation or another trap. What do you want in return? Nothing. Just promise me he'll pay for what he's done. Back at his house, Kevin verified the flash drive's contents. The evidence was damning and authentic. Thomas Chen had indeed orchestrated the entire frame job with funding and support from what remained of the Pantheon Club. This clears you completely, Kevin said. But Marcus, there's more. They have other plans. According to these files, tomorrow morning, they're going to release deepfake videos of you saying horrific things. Technology so good, even experts will struggle to prove they're fake. Marcus felt exhaustion weighing him down. Every victory led to another battle. Every enemy defeated revealed 2 more. When does it end? His mother, who'd been listening from the doorway, walked in. It doesn't end, baby. Your father fought these battles his whole life. Different faces, same hatred. The question isn't when it ends, but whether you keep fighting. And if I'm tired of fighting, then you remember why you started. Not for yourself, but for everyone who can't fight. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He walked through his house looking at the photos on the walls. His father accepting an engineering award. His mother at her college graduation. Himself at various stages of success. They'd all fought to get where they were against different but related obstacles. At 4 a.m., his phone buzzed. A video had been released on social media, already going viral. It showed Marcus, or someone who looked exactly like him, making racist comments about white customers, saying Madisons should exclude them like they'd excluded others. The deepfake was flawless. Within minutes, his phone was exploding with calls. The media wanted statements. Investors wanted explanations. Even some allies were expressing doubt. Janet arrived at dawn with a crisis team. We need to respond immediately. Every minute this spreads unchallenged, it becomes more real in people's minds. How do we prove a negative? How do we show something didn't happen when it looks like it did? We don't, Aisha said, arriving with her camera equipment. We make them prove it did. Marcus, where were you when this video was supposedly taken? Kevin cross-referenced the metadata. According to the timestamp, you were supposedly at Madison's Beverly Hills at 2 p.m. last Thursday. I was in San Francisco, Marcus remembered, in a board meeting with 40 witnesses. Perfect. We go live with that proof immediately. But as they prepared to broadcast another crisis hit, the FBI arrived with a warrant. Thomas Chen had been murdered in his apartment, and Marcus's business card had been found at the scene, along with a threatening note in what appeared to be his handwriting. You're not under arrest, the lead agent said, but you need to come with us. This is insane, Janet protested. He's being framed again. We know, the agent said quietly. But we have to follow procedure. Mr. Johnson, bring your security footage from last night. We'll need to establish your whereabouts. At the FBI office, it became clear that even the agents knew the frame job was obvious. Thomas Chen had been killed professionally, made to look like a crime of passion. But Marcus had been on a video call with his entire legal team at the time of death. Someone's cleaning house, the agent said. Chen was a liability. He knew too much. Blackstone, Marcus said with certainty. Probably, but proving it is another matter. While Marcus was being questioned, the deepfake video had spread globally. Despite proof of his alibi, many people chose to believe the fake. Madison's stores were being vandalized by groups claiming Marcus was the real racist. Jasmine called in tears. "Mr. Johnson, we had to close the Beverly Hills store. There are protesters outside saying we're hypocrites, that the whole inclusion thing was a scam." The reversal was complete. In 24 hours, Marcus had gone from civil rights hero to murder suspect and exposed racist. The Pantheon Club's revenge was more thorough than he'd imagined possible. But then, something unexpected happened. The protesters at Madison's weren't all against Marcus. About half were supporters, people who'd benefited from the new policies who refused to believe the lies. A confrontation was brewing. Marcus rushed to Beverly Hills against FBI advice, arriving to find a powder keg. Two groups faced off in front of Madison's, those who believed the deepfake and those who knew Marcus's true character. "You stood with us," a young Latina woman shouted at the anti-Marcus protesters. "When no one else would, he fought for us. That video is fake." "You're naive," someone shouted back. "He played you all. Rich people don't care about us." Marcus stepped between the groups, knowing he was taking a massive risk. "Everyone, please. This is exactly what they want us, fighting each other instead of the system that oppresses us all." "How do we know you're not just another liar?" someone challenged. Before Marcus could answer, Judge Harrison appeared, followed by dozens of people. Marcus recognized all victims of discrimination who'd testified against Madison's and the Pantheon Club. "We know," Judge Harrison said loudly, "because we've seen his actions, not just his words. For 6 months, this man has put everything on the line for justice. One fake video doesn't erase that." More supporters arrived. Kevin had organized them through social media, calling on everyone who'd benefited from Marcus's stand to show up. Within an hour, the crowd of supporters dwarfed the detractors. But the moment of unity was shattered by breaking news. Harrison Blackstone was holding a press conference. On every screen in the Beverly Hills shopping district, his face appeared. "Marcus Johnson is a fraud," Blackstone announced. "He orchestrated the entire Madison's incident for publicity. He planted evidence against the Pantheon Club. He murdered Thomas Chen to silence him. I have proof." He held up a folder. Signed affidavits from witnesses, financial records showing payments to actors who pretended to be discrimination victims, even a confession from someone in Johnson's inner circle. The crowd around Marcus grew restless. Doubt was creeping in, even among supporters. "Who?" Marcus demanded. "Who supposedly confessed?" The answer came from behind him. "I did." Everyone turned to see David Chen, Marcus's own CFO, stepping forward with tears in his eyes. "They have my daughter," David whispered to Marcus. "Not kidnapped, but they own her company, her mortgage, her future. If I don't do this, they'll destroy her life." Marcus felt the betrayal like a physical blow, but he understood. The Pantheon Club had learned from their mistake with Lucy Madison. This time they'd taken hostages without technically taking anyone. "David, you don't have to do this," Marcus said. "Yes, I do. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm so sorry." He turned to the cameras that had appeared. "Marcus Johnson paid me to falsify evidence against the Pantheon Club. The discrimination was real, but minor. He exaggerated everything for publicity." The crowd erupted. Some shouted that David was lying, others that they'd been duped. The carefully built coalition was fracturing. Janet grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to go. This is about to get violent." But Marcus stood firm. "No. Running makes me look guilty." Aisha pushed through the crowd, her camera live streaming. "Mr. Chen, if Marcus paid you, there would be records. Show us the proof." David hesitated. It was cash." "How much cash?" "When where?" Aisha pressed. I don't remember exactly." The crowd noticed David's uncertainty. Someone shouted, "He's lying! Look at his face!" But before the truth could be pursued, police sirens filled the air. Dozens of officers in riot gear appeared, moving to disperse the crowd. Someone had called in a false report of violence, giving authorities excuse to shut down the gathering. Everyone needs to leave immediately, the police commander announced. This is an unlawful assembly. We're peaceful, Judge Harrison protested. Leave now or be arrested. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus noticed something. Several of the riot police weren't real cops. Their badges were wrong, their formation non-standard. These were private security, probably Pantheon Club associates, mixing with real police to cause chaos. He tried to point this out, but a smoke grenade went off. In the confusion, someone grabbed Marcus, dragging him into an alley. He fought back, but felt a needle pierce his neck. The world went dark. Marcus woke in a warehouse tied to a chair. Harrison Blackstone sat across from him, no longer the composed executive, but something more primal and dangerous. You should have taken the money, Blackstone said. All of this could have been avoided. Where am I? Somewhere your friends will never find you. You're going to disappear, Mr. Johnson. But first you're going to sign some documents. A confession, a transfer of assets, and a suicide note. I'll never sign. Blackstone smiled. Everyone signs eventually. Physical pain is crude, but effective. However, I prefer psychological pressure. He pulled out a tablet showing security footage. Your mother is currently at her favorite restaurant. One word from me, and she has a fatal allergic reaction to something in her food. You're monsters. We're preservers of order. You're the chaos agent destroying systems that took centuries to build. Systems of oppression. Systems of organization. Do you know what happens without hierarchy, Mr. Johnson Anarchy? We provide structure, even if that structure isn't equal. You provide discrimination dressed up as tradition. Blackstone stood pacing. Your grandfather understood. He took our money because he knew fighting us was futile. My grandfather was surviving. I'm living. No, Mr. Johnson. You're dying. The only question is whether others die with you. Marcus tested his bonds. The rope was professional, but the chair had a weak point he could feel. He needed to keep Blackstone talking. The FBI knows about Chen's murder. They know I'm being framed. The FBI knows what we tell them. We have people everywhere, Mr. Johnson. Judges, prosecutors, even reform advocates who secretly work for us. Like who? Blackstone laughed. Wouldn't you like to know? Let's just say someone very close to you has been reporting to us from the beginning. Marcus's mind raced. Who could it be? Janet, Kevin. Even Jasmine. His phone, somehow still in his pocket, vibrated. Blackstone hadn't searched him thoroughly, arrogant in his victory. Marcus shifted, trying to activate the emergency signal Kevin had installed. The world is watching now, Marcus said, still stalling. The live stream had millions of viewers. You can't make me disappear without consequences. Watch me. Tomorrow's headline: Disgraced billionaire Marcus Johnson flees country ahead of arrest. We have footage of you boarding a private plane to a non-extradition country. Your confession will surface in a few days after you're supposedly settled. No one will believe it. They believe the deepfake. They believe David's confession. People believe what confirms their suspicions, and we've given them plenty of reason to suspect you. The chair cracked slightly as Marcus shifted his weight. Almost there. Why not just kill me? Why this elaborate scheme? Because martyrs are dangerous, but disgraced frauds who run, they're just footnotes. Suddenly, the warehouse door exploded open. Not police Aisha and Kevin, armed with cameras and streaming live. Smile, Mr. Blackstone, Aisha said. You're live to 3 million viewers. Blackstone lunged for the camera, but Marcus broke free from the chair, tackling him. They struggled, but Blackstone was older, weaker. Marcus pinned him as sirens approached, real sirens this time. It's over, Marcus said. Is it? Blackstone laughed. You think I'm the top of this pyramid? I'm middle management at best. The real power. You haven't even glimpsed it. FBI agents flooded in, led by Director Hayes herself. Mr. Blackstone, you're under arrest for kidnapping conspiracy and about 30 other charges. As Blackstone was led away, he called back. Ask yourself, Johnson, how did your friends know where to find you? Who really sent them? Kevin showed Marcus his laptop. Your emergency signal led us here. But Marcus, there's something else. The signal activated before you triggered it. Someone else has been tracking you. Who? Before Kevin could answer, Marcus's phone rang. The voice on the other end was electronically disguised, but somehow familiar. Hello, Marcus. Congratulations on surviving Blackstone. He was getting sloppy emotional. Bad for business. Who is this? Someone who's been watching, guiding, orchestrating. You think you've been fighting the power? You've been dancing to its tune. Every victory you've had, we allowed. Every enemy you've defeated, we wanted removed. You're lying. Am I? Who do you think really owned those Madison shares that mysteriously became available? Who ensured the FBI had just enough evidence to arrest the Pantheon Club? Who made sure you'd be at that specific Madison store at that specific time? Marcus felt his world tilting again. What do you want? What we've always wanted: evolution, not revolution. The Pantheon Club was old guard, crude, obvious. We're the new guard, subtle, sophisticated. We don't discriminate based on race that's prehistoric. We discriminate based on usefulness. You're just another version of them. We're an upgrade. And you, Marcus Johnson, have been our unwitting agent of change. You've cleared out the old to make way for the new. Madison's will thrive under its inclusive policies because diversity is profitable now. But make no mistake, it's still about profit, power, and control. I'll expose you too. With what evidence? We don't have clubs or meetings. We're not an organization, but an understanding and network of aligned interests. You can't fight what you can't see. Then why tell me? Because your part is almost done. One more task and you can retire a hero, or refuse and watch everything you've built crumble. The choice is yours. The line went dead. Marcus stood in the warehouse, surrounded by FBI agents cataloging evidence, Aisha and Kevin asking if he was okay, but he felt more alone than ever. The enemy wasn't defeated, it had simply evolved. Marcus. Janet arrived, having heard about the kidnapping. Thank God you're safe. He looked at her, wondering. Was she part of it? Was anyone really on his side? Or were they all just pieces in someone else's game? We need to talk, he said to his inner circle. All of us. Something bigger is happening here. As they left the warehouse, Marcus noticed a homeless man watching from across the street. The man raised his hand in what could have been a wave or a salute, then disappeared into the shadows. Something about him seemed familiar, but Marcus couldn't place it. The war he'd thought he was winning had just revealed itself to be a single battle in something much larger. The Pantheon Club was gone, but its replacement might be worse, invisible, adaptable, using inclusion itself as a tool of control. In his pocket, the flash drive Patricia Westbrook had given him felt heavier. He'd thought it contained salvation, but now he wondered if it was just another trap, another move in a game whose rules he didn't understand. Tomorrow the media would want statements. The board would want explanations. The FBI would want testimony. But tonight Marcus had a different priority, figuring out who he could really trust and what this new enemy really wanted. As he got into his car, he saw his reflection in the window and barely recognized himself. 6 months ago, he'd walked into Madison's to expose discrimination. Now he was trapped in a web of conspiracy that made discrimination seem simple by comparison. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The real test begins now. Welcome to the game behind the game. Marcus deleted the text, but he knew the message would stay with him. The fight for justice had become something else, something darker and more complex, and he was no longer sure which side he was really on.